The alarm screamed through the monitoring station like a wounded animal. Senior Officer Vex 19 of the Galactic Council rushed to his console, his crystalline body sparking with nervous energy. The readouts made no sense. After 20,000 years of silence, something impossible was happening. Impossible, he whispered in his clicking language. His translator box hummed and converted the words to standard galactic speech. The signal. It cannot be real. The transmission came from the silent sector, a dead region of space where no life had existed for millennia. But this was not random noise or stellar radiation. This was deliberate, structured, and terrifyingly familiar. Vex 19 had spent his entire career studying ancient languages and forgotten civilizations. He recognized the mathematical patterns in the signal, even though they should not exist anymore. His hands trembled as he activated the emergency protocols. Council Command, this is Deep Space Station Epsilon 7. We have detected a transmission using ... using human encryption protocols. The silence that followed his report lasted exactly 13 seconds. Then chaos erupted across the communication. Channels? Human protocols? That is impossible. The humans vanished 20,000 years ago. Confirm your readings immediately. This could be a system malfunction. Lock down all communications. If this is real, we need to control the information. Vex 19 checked his instruments 3 times, then called for backup verification from 2 other stations. The result was always the same. Somewhere in the silent sector, something was broadcasting using technology that belonged to a species the galaxy had almost forgotten. The humans had been young when they disappeared. Barely 200 years into their space age, they had colonies on maybe 50 worlds. Their technology was primitive compared to the great civilizations of the galaxy. They should have been just another footnote in galactic history, but they were not like other species. Even the ancient records mentioned their strange nature. They adapted to any environment. They learned faster than seemed possible. They never gave up, even when facing impossible odds. Most disturbing of all, they had left by choice. No enemy had driven them away. No catastrophe had destroyed their worlds. One day they were there, building and expanding. The next day they were gone, every colony abandoned, every ship recalled. Every human in the galaxy had simply vanished. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UHS Endeavour, watching the galaxy that had forgotten his species. 20,000 years was a long time, even for humans with their extended lifespans, but they had not wasted those years. Dr. Carter, are you ready for this? He asked his science officer. Dr. Lisa Carter looked up from her console. Her eyes held the weight of centuries, but her voice was steady. The signal has been transmitted. The Council has detected it. Phase 1 is complete, Morrison nodded. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. They had trained for this moment. For decades. Every person on the ship understood the importance of what they were about to do. Lieutenant Turner, what is the Council's response? Alex Turner, the youngest member of the senior staff at only 150 years old, checked his instruments. They are sending a scout ship, sir, the CSS Harmony, a Luminian vessel. It should reach our position in approximately 6 hours. Good. Captain Phillips, are our defenses ready? Zara Phillips, the ship's military advisor, allowed herself a small smile. The scout ship will not be able to detect us unless we choose to reveal ourselves. Our technology advantage is significant. Morrison understood the understatement. Humanity had spent 20,000 years in exile, but they had not spent them hiding. They had been preparing. The harsh conditions at the galaxy's edge had forced them to innovate in ways that would have been impossible in the comfortable inner systems. They had learned to manipulate gravity as easily as other species use electricity. They had developed computers that thought faster than biological brains. They had unlocked secrets of physics that the Council species had never imagined. Most importantly, they had evolved. Not just their technology, but themselves. The humans aboard the Endeavour were not the same species that had left the galaxy 20,000 years ago. They were something new, something that the old galaxy would struggle to understand. Sir, Dr. Carter said quietly, the CSS Harmony has just entered the silent sector. They are scanning for our signal source. Morrison watched the tactical display. As the alien scout ship moved through the dead space between stars, the Luminians were beings of pure energy, and their ships were marvels of efficiency. Under normal circumstances, nothing in the galaxy could hide from their sensors, but these were not normal circumstances. Let them search, Morrison said. We will wait until they are convinced we are not here. Then we will show them the truth. The hours passed slowly. The CSS Harmony covered thousands of cubic kilometers of space, its sensors probing every asteroid and gas cloud. The Luminian crew grew frustrated as they found nothing but empty space and stellar debris. Finally, the scout ship's commander made the decision that Morrison had been waiting for. The CSS Harmony turned away from the signal source and began its return journey to Council space. Now, Morrison said quietly, the Endeavor dropped its stealth field and appeared directly behind the retreating Council ship. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The CSS Harmony's sensors screamed warnings as a massive vessel materialized out of nowhere, its hull reflecting starlight in patterns that should have been impossible. The Luminian captain's first transmission was predictable. Unknown vessel, identify yourself immediately. How did you approach without detection? Morrison stood and walked to the communications console. After 20,000 years of silence, humanity was about to speak to the galaxy again. CSS Harmony, this is Commander Jake Morrison of the United Human Ship Endeavor. We have been watching your people for a very long time. We know about your wars, your peace treaties, your struggles, and your victories. We know about the 12 species of the Council and their histories. We know things about your own people that your own leaders have forgotten. The silence from the Council ship lasted nearly a minute. When the Luminian captain finally responded, his voice carried a mixture of fear and confusion. That ... is impossible. The humans vanished 20,000 years ago. There are no human ships in this galaxy. You are wrong, Morrison replied. Calmly, we never left this galaxy. We only moved to places where you could not find us. We have been here all along, learning about what you built after we were gone. Dr. Carter activated the ship's demonstration systems. The space around both vessels filled with holographic displays showing detailed information about every Council species. Population statistics, technological capabilities, military strengths, cultural practices, even the personal histories of individual leaders. This is impossible, the Luminian captain repeated. How could you know these things? How could you have remained hidden for 20,000 years? Morrison's expression grew serious. Because we had to. Because we knew that someday something terrible would come to this galaxy. Something that would require all of us to work together if we hope to survive. The CSS Harmony sensors detected more ships approaching. Not one or two, but dozens. Human vessels emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their technology allowing them to appear and disappear at will. We did not return to conquer. Morrison continued. We did not return to claim territory or seek revenge for old grievances. We returned because the time of hiding is over. The galaxy faces a threat that none of us can handle alone. The Luminian captain's voice was barely a whisper. What ... kind of threat? Morrison looked out at the stars, seeing beyond them to the dark spaces between galaxies where ancient terrors waited. The kind that destroys entire civilizations. The kind that consumes stars and planets like a fire consumes dry wood. The kind that we have been preparing to fight for 20,000 years. The phantom signal had done its work. The Council knew that humanity had returned. Now came the hard part, convincing them that their return was not the threat they should fear. In the vast darkness between galaxies, something stirred. Something that had been moving toward their galaxy for millions of years, devouring everything in its path. The humans had seen it coming and had spent 20 millennia preparing for war. The galaxy was about to learn that some silences are not peaceful. Some silences are the pause before the storm. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council had been called within hours of the CSS Harmony's report. Representatives from all 12 species gathered in the Great Chamber on Council Prime, their voices filling the air with dozens of different languages as translators worked overtime. Chancellor Thex of the Vortex stood at the center podium, her crystalline body pulsing with nervous energy. The crystal beings stored all galactic history in their living memory banks, and right now those memories were causing her great concern. The transmission from the CSS Harmony has been verified, she announced, her voice echoing through the chamber. The humans have returned. After 20,000 years of silence, they are back. A wave of fear rippled through the assembled representatives. The Nixari hive mind buzzed with internal discussion, their collective consciousness struggling to process this impossible news. The Luminians flickered between different energy states, their usual calm completely shattered. How is this possible? Demanded Ambassador Colseven of the Nexari. Our senses cover the entire galaxy. Nothing this large could have remained hidden for so long. Chancellor Thex's crystalline form dimmed as she accessed her deepest memory banks. The ancient records speak of human capabilities that we dismissed as primitive fear. They could adapt to any environment. They learned faster than any species we have ever encountered. Most troubling of all, they never stayed defeated. She paused, letting the implications sink in. The records also show that they did not flee the galaxy. They chose to leave. Every colony was abandoned in perfect order. Every ship was recalled. Every human simply vanished in the span of a single year. Dr. Ben Rodriguez stood in the observation deck of the UHS Endeavour, watching the Council fleet gather near their position. As humanity's leading expert on their own evolution, he understood better than anyone how much they had changed during their long exile. "Amy," he said to the communications officer beside him, "are you monitoring the Council transmissions?" Amy Foster nodded, her enhanced hearing picking up radio signals from across the star system. "They are terrified, Ben. They keep talking about human threats and primitive aggression. They do not understand that we are not the same species that left 20,000 years ago." Ben smiled sadly. "How could they understand? We barely understand it ourselves. 20,000 years in the harshest regions of space, forced to survive where no other species could exist. It changed us in ways we never expected. The changes had been gradual at first. Longer lifespans to handle the isolation. Enhanced pattern recognition to spot dangers in the void between stars. Improved intuition to navigate through regions where normal sensors failed, but then the changes had accelerated. Human brains had developed new structures that could process quantum information directly. Their bodies had adapted to survive in environments that would kill other species instantly. Most remarkably, they had learned to perceive dimensions of reality that other species could not even imagine. "Captain Hayes wants to speak with you," Amy said. Interrupting his thoughts, Ben made his way to the bridge where Captain Ron Hayes was studying tactical displays. Hayes was old, even by human standards. He had been alive during the original Exodus 20,000 years ago, one of the few who remembered life in the old galaxy. "Ben, I need you to explain something to me," Hayes said without looking up from his screens. "The Council has mobilized over 300 ships. They are treating us like an invasion force. But according to my calculations, we could have destroyed their entire fleet before they even knew we were here. Why are they so afraid?" Ben considered the question carefully. "Because they remember the old stories Ron, the Thales, their ancestors, told about humanity's potential. Stories they thought were just primitive legends." Hayes finally looked up, his ancient eyes sharp with understanding. "And now they are realizing those stories might have been true." "Worse than that," Ben replied. "They are realizing that we have had 20,000 years to fulfill that potential." Amy's voice came over the communication system. "Commander Morrison requests all senior staff to the briefing room. The Council is demanding a face-to-face meeting." The briefing room of the UHS Endeavour was designed to accommodate the enhanced capabilities of modern humans. The walls displayed information in patterns that would have been impossible for their ancestors to comprehend, while the air itself carried data streams that the crew could perceive directly. Commander Morrison stood at the head of the table, his expression grave. The Council has issued an ultimatum. They want a full explanation of our capabilities, our intentions, and our numbers. They have given us 6 hours to comply, or they will consider us a hostile force. Dr. Carter looked up from her analysis of Council communications. Their fear is understandable, Jake. From their perspective, we are an unknown quantity with clearly superior technology. They cannot detect our ships, they cannot predict our movements, and they have no idea how many of us there are. How many of us are there? Asked Lieutenant Turner. Morrison paused before answering. The exact number is classified, but our population is larger than it was 20,000 years ago, much larger. The harsh conditions at the galaxy's edge forced us to be creative about survival and reproduction. Captain Phillips activated a holographic display showing the Council fleet positions. Their formation is defensive, but they are clearly preparing for battle. The Vorthak have positioned their heavy cruisers in a containment pattern, while the Lumenian ships are ready to provide long-range support. They think we are here to conquer, Morrison said quietly. They cannot imagine any other reason for our return. Amy Foster spoke up from her position at the communications console. Commander, I have been monitoring their internal communications. Some of the Council members are advocating for immediate attack. They believe that humanity represents an existential threat to galactic stability. Morrison nodded grimly, and they are not entirely wrong. We do represent a threat to their way of life, but not in the way they think. He activated the room's main display, showing images from the deep void between galaxies. The threat comes from out there, something that makes our technological advantages look like children's toys, something that consumes entire star systems and moves on to the next galaxy. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Rodriguez was the first to speak. How long do we have? Best estimates suggest between 500 and 1,000 years, Morrison replied, but it could be much sooner. The entity we are tracking does not follow predictable patterns. Captain Hayes leaned forward in his chair. So we have returned to warn them, to prepare them for something they cannot imagine. More than that, Morrison said, we have returned to save them. Because if we fail, every species in this galaxy will cease to exist. The Council's ultimatum timer showed 3 hours remaining. When the UHS Endeavor's sister ship, the UHS Vigilant, dropped out of hyperspace. Then another ship appeared, and another. Within minutes, the space around the Council fleet was filled with human vessels, each one appearing without warning from seemingly empty space. The Council representatives watched in growing horror as their sensors registered ship after ship materializing from nowhere. The humans were not just back. They were back in force. Ambassador Cole 7 of the Nixari sent a frantic message to the Council chamber. They have us surrounded. Dozens of ships. Maybe hundreds. Our sensors cannot get accurate readings. Their technology is beyond anything we have encountered. Chancellor Thex accessed her memory banks again, searching for any reference to human fleet tactics. What she found made her crystalline form dim with fear. The ancient records speak of human naval doctrine. They never fought fair. They always sought overwhelming advantage before engaging. Are they preparing to attack? Asked the Lumenian representative. I do not know, Thex replied. But if they wanted to destroy us, they could have done so already. The fact that we are still alive suggests they want something else. Commander Morrison opened a channel to the Council fleet. Council representatives. This is Commander Jake Morrison of the United Human Fleet. We know you are afraid. We know you see us as a threat. But we need you to understand something very important. The communication channel crackled with dozens of voices demanding explanations, ultimatums, and threats. Morrison waited for the noise to die down before continuing. We did not return to this galaxy to conquer you. We returned because something is coming that will destroy all of us if we do not work together. Your ships, your technology, your people, None of it will matter if we cannot unite against what approaches. Chancellor Thex's voice came through. Clearly, what evidence do you have of this threat? How do we know this is not a deception designed to make us lower our defenses? Morrison smiled grimly. Because, Chancellor, we have been watching you for 20,000 years. We know about your wars, your peace treaties, your internal politics, and your deepest secrets. If we wanted to conquer you, we would have done it already. The truth hit the council representatives like a physical blow. The humans had not just returned. They had never really left. They had been watching, learning, preparing for 20 millennia. The Watchers have returned, Chancellor Thex whispered, her voice carrying across all communication channels. The council chamber had never seen such chaos. Representatives from 12 species shouted over each other in languages that their translators struggled to convert. Some demanded immediate attack on the human fleet. Others called for negotiation. A few suggested retreat to safer systems. Chancellor Thex struck her crystalline staff against the podium, sending sharp ringing sounds through the chamber. Silence, we must think clearly about this situation. The Nexari ambassador's collective voice buzzed with agitation. Think clearly? How can we think clearly when these humans have been watching us for 20,000 years? They know our weaknesses, our military capabilities, our secret plans. We are completely exposed. Ambassador Velprime of the Luminians flickered between energy states, her usual calm completely shattered. Our sensors still cannot get accurate readings on their ships. They appear and disappear at will. We have no idea how many vessels they truly have. Chancellor Thex accessed her deepest memory banks, searching for any information about human capabilities from the ancient records. What she found made her more worried than before. The old archives contain warnings that we dismissed as primitive. Fear. They speak of human adaptability that bordered on the supernatural. They warn that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology, but their ability to change. Meanwhile, aboard the UHS Endeavour, Commander Morrison prepared for the most important conversation in human history. The Council had finally agreed to direct communication, but the tension in space was thick enough to cut with a knife. Dr. Clark, are you ready for this? Morrison asked his specialist in alien psychology. Dr. Tim Clark looked up from his analysis of Council communication patterns. As ready as anyone can be for first contact with 12 terrified civilizations. Jake, they are not just afraid of our technology. They are afraid of what we represent, change, the unknown. The possibility that everything they believe about the galaxy is wrong. Morrison nodded. And they are right to be afraid. Because everything is about to change. Vice Admiral Kate Sullivan's voice came through the communication system. Jake. The Council fleet is holding position, but their weapons are powered and ready. Some of their ships are showing signs of panic. We need to calm this situation before someone does something stupid. Morrison took a deep breath and opened a channel to the Council fleet. Council representatives, this is Commander Morrison. I know you are afraid. I know you see us as a threat. But we need to talk face to face before fear makes decisions. For all of us. The response came from Chancellor Thex herself. Commander Morrison, the Council agrees to direct communication. But we demand guarantees. We want to know your true intentions and your real capabilities. Chancellor, I will show you exactly what we are capable of. But first, I need you to understand something. We could have destroyed your entire fleet before. You even knew we were here. The fact that you are still alive should tell you something about our intentions. Morrison signaled to Dr. Clark, who activated the ship's demonstration systems. The space around the Council fleet suddenly filled with impossible sights. Human ships began to manipulate gravity itself, creating complex three-dimensional sculptures that defied physics as the Council species understood it. The vigilant folded space around itself, appearing to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. The UAS Defender projected energy patterns that wrote messages directly in the fabric of space-time. The UHS Guardian created artificial aurora that painted the void in colors that had no names, but the most disturbing demonstration came from the humans themselves. Dr. Clark opened a direct mental link to Chancellor Vex, transmitting thoughts and memories without any technological interface. The Vorthic leader experienced human consciousness directly, feeling the weight of 20,000 years of development and change. "How?" she whispered, her crystalline form flickering with shock. "How can you touch minds without technology?" Dr. Clark's voice came directly into her thoughts. "Because we had to learn. Because the environment we lived in for 20,000 years forced us to develop capabilities that your species never needed. We adapted because we had no choice." The mental contact lasted only seconds, but it left Chancellor Vex shaken. She had felt the vast intelligence behind human consciousness, the layers of thought and perception that went far beyond anything she had imagined possible. "Council representatives," Morrison continued, "what you have seen is just a small sample of what we learned during our exile. We did not spend 20,000 years hiding. We spent them preparing." Ambassador Kolseven of the Nexari found his collective voice. Preparing for what? What could require such extensive preparation? Morrison's expression grew grave. Something that makes our capabilities look like children's toys. Something that consumes entire galaxies and moves on to the next. Something that will be here within the next 1,000 years. The communication channels fell silent as the implications sank in. Vice Admiral Sullivan's fleet moved into a protective formation around the Council ships, demonstrating their advanced maneuvering capabilities. The human vessels moved like living things, flowing through space with impossible grace. Lieutenant Colonel Dan Morgan, commander of the Human Marines, opened a channel to the Council military leaders. "We know you are soldiers. We know you understand duty and sacrifice. What we are telling you is that your greatest battle is coming, and you cannot fight it alone." The Council representatives struggled to process what they were seeing and hearing. The humans were not just technologically advanced. They had evolved into something beyond their original species. Their consciousness operated on levels that other species could barely comprehend. Dr. Clark addressed the Council directly. "We know this is difficult to accept. We know you find us frightening. But consider this, we have been watching you for 20,000 years. We know about your wars, your peace treaties, your internal conflicts. We know which species still harbor grudges against each other. We know your military secrets and your political weaknesses." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "If we wanted to conquer you, we would have used that knowledge against you. We would have played your species against each other until you destroyed yourselves. Instead, we chose to reveal ourselves openly and honestly." Chancellor Vex's voice carried a mixture of fear and curiosity. "What do you want from us?" Morrison activated the ship's long-range sensors, displaying images from the deep void between galaxies. "We want you to survive. Because what is coming will not distinguish between human and alien. It will consume everything in its path." The images showed star systems being drained of energy, entire worlds reduced to empty husks, civilizations that had existed for millions of years simply ceasing to exist. The scale of destruction was beyond anything the Council species had ever imagined. "This is what we have been preparing to fight," Morrison continued. "Not each other, but something that sees all life as nothing more than fuel for its endless hunger." Ambassador Velprime of the Lumenians flickered with understanding. "The old stories. The warnings in our most ancient archives about things that live in the spaces between stars. We thought they were mythology." "They were not mythology," Morrison replied. "They were memories. Warnings left by civilizations that encountered these entities and barely survived to tell the tale." Dr. Clark opened the mental link again, this time to all the Council representatives simultaneously. The experience was overwhelming. 20,000 years of human development. The weight of their preparation, the terrible knowledge of what approached from the void. The Council leaders experienced human determination directly, feeling the absolute commitment to survival that had driven their species to evolve beyond recognition. They felt the loneliness of 20 millennia in exile, the weight of responsibility for an entire galaxy's survival. When the connection ended, the Council chamber was silent. The representatives sat in stunned contemplation, trying to process what they had experienced. "We need time to consider this," Chancellor Vex said finally. "What you have shown us, ... What you have made us feel, it changes everything," Morrison nodded. "Time is something we have very little of. But we understand your need to process this information. We will give you 48 hours to make your decision." "What decision?" asked Ambassador Cole-7. "Whether to face what is coming together or separately," Morrison replied. "Whether to trust the species that disappeared 20,000 years ago, or to face extinction alone." The human fleet began to pull back, giving the Council ships space to think. But their presence remained, a constant reminder that the galaxy had changed forever. Vice Admiral Sullivan opened a private channel to Morrison. "Jake, some of the Council species are already discussing alliance. The Luminians understand the threat better than the others. They know that beings of pure energy cannot survive if spacetime itself is consumed." Morrison watched the Council fleet on his tactical display. "And the others?" "The Vorthak are accessing their deepest memory banks, looking for more information about the old warnings. The Nexari are having internal debates that are tearing their hive mind apart. The other species are still trying to decide if we are their salvation or their doom." Dr. Clark joined the conversation. "They will come around. They have to." The 48 hours passed like a lifetime for the Council representatives. Emergency sessions ran day and night as each species struggled with the choice before them. Trust the humans who had vanished for 20,000 years, or face the approaching threat alone. Chancellor Vex stood before the greatest archive in Vorthak history, her crystalline form glowing as she accessed memory banks that had not been opened for millennia. Deep within the ancient records, she found fragments of warnings that made her blood freeze. "The Eaters of Stars," she whispered, reading words that had been dismissed as mythology for thousands of years. "The Void Walkers, the things that live between the spaces of reality." The archive spoke of civilizations that had simply vanished overnight. Not destroyed by war or plague, but consumed entirely. Stars that went dark. Planets that became empty. Shells, entire sectors of space that turned cold and lifeless. Ambassador Cole-7 of the Nexari was having similar problems. The hive mind that connected all his people was experiencing something unprecedented: internal conflict. Different nodes of the collective consciousness were reaching different conclusions about the human threat. "We cannot agree," he reported to the Council chamber. "Part of us sees the humans as saviors. Part of us sees them as the greatest threat we have ever faced. Our collective mind is breaking apart trying to process this decision." Meanwhile, aboard the UHS Endeavour, Dr. Sarah Kim was preparing the most important presentation of her career. As humanity's leading expert on what they called the Devourers, she had spent centuries studying the approaching threat. "Commander Morrison," she said, entering the briefing room with arms full of data tablets, "the Council has requested proof of our claims. They want to see evidence of this threat we keep talking about." Morrison nodded grimly. "Show them everything, Sarah. Hold nothing back. They need to understand exactly what we are facing." Dr. Kim activated the ship's main display system, filling the room with images that made even the experienced human crew uncomfortable. 25,000 years ago, long before any current galactic civilization achieved spaceflight, we detected an event in the Andromeda Galaxy cluster. An entire galaxy simply went dark over the span of a few thousand years. The images showed the progression of destruction. First, the outer spiral arms of the galaxy lost their light. Then the inner systems began to fade. Finally, even the massive black hole at the galaxy's center went silent, its accretion disk disappearing as if the matter itself had been consumed. At first, we thought it was a natural phenomenon, maybe a chain reaction of supernovas or a collision with dark matter. But as we studied the pattern, we realized something was actively consuming the galaxy from the inside out. Commander Pete Jackson, leader of humanity's Deep Space Monitoring Network, joined the briefing via communication link. His image flickered as the signal crossed the vast distances between star systems. Sarah is being modest, Jackson said. She was the one who first identified the consumption pattern. She realized that whatever was destroying that galaxy was not just taking energy or matter. It was taking the basic structure of space-time itself. Dr. Kim nodded and brought up new images. The destruction follows a specific pattern. First, the entities drain all energy from a system, solar radiation, planetary heat, even the movement of electrons around atomic nuclei. Then they begin consuming matter itself, breaking down atoms into their component parts. Finally, they unravel the fabric of space-time, leaving behind voids that cannot support any form of existence. Morrison studied the tactical displays showing the approach vectors. How much time do we have? Best estimates put their arrival anywhere from 500 to 1,000 years, Dr. Kim replied. But they are not following a straight path. They seem to be drawn to areas of high energy output and complex organization. Civilizations that burn brighter attract them faster. General Linda Torres, humanity's strategic planner for the coming conflict, activated additional displays showing defensive preparations. We have spent 20,000 years developing countermeasures, but we are still not sure they will work. These entities exist partially outside normal reality. They can only be fought with weapons and tactics that operate on multiple dimensional levels. The briefing was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Council fleet. Chancellor Thex's voice carried a mixture of fear and determination. Commander Morrison, we have accessed our oldest archives. We found references to the threat you describe. Ancient warnings about entities that consume entire galaxies. We need to see your evidence. Morrison exchanged glances with his senior staff. Chancellor, prepare your representatives for information that will change how you see the universe. Dr. Kim, transmit everything. The data transfer took several hours. The Council representatives watched in growing horror as humanity's 20,000-year investigation unfolded before them. Star charts showing the progression of destruction across multiple galaxy clusters. Energy signatures that defied known physics. Mathematical models that predicted the entities' arrival in their own galaxy. But the most disturbing information came from humanity's deep space monitoring stations. Commander Jackson appeared on the main communication screen, his face drawn with exhaustion. Council representatives, what I'm about to show you is classified at the highest levels of human command. We are sharing this information because you need to understand the full scope of what approaches. The display filled with real-time sensor data from the void between galaxies. At first, it looked like empty space. Then the sensors adjusted their parameters, revealing something that should not exist. Those energy readings are from Devourer, Scout entities, Jackson explained. They have been probing the edge of our galaxy for the past 50 years. Each probe gets a little closer, a little more aggressive. They are testing our defenses, learning about our capabilities. Ambassador Velprime of the Luminians flickered with understanding and terror. You were saying they are already here? Already. Testing us? Not here, Jackson corrected, but close enough to touch the outer edge of our galaxy. Close enough to detect the energy signatures of our civilizations, and close enough to begin planning their assault. The council chamber erupted in chaos as the representatives realized the implications. The threat was not some distant possibility. It was an immediate danger that was already probing their defenses. Chancellor Thex's voice cut through the noise. How do we fight something like this? How do we battle entities that consume space-time itself? General Torres took over the briefing. With great difficulty and enormous sacrifice. The weapons we have developed operate on principles that your current technology cannot support. We need to share our knowledge, but more importantly, we need your resources and your people. She activated a display showing proposed defensive preparations. We need to militarize entire star systems. We need factories that can produce weapons in quantities that seem impossible. We need every species working together with a level of cooperation that has never existed in galactic history. Dr. Kim added more disturbing details. The entities do not think like biological life. They do not negotiate or show mercy. They do not seem to understand concepts like surrender or retreat. They exist only to consume, and they will not stop until everything in this galaxy is gone. The silence that followed her words was profound. For the first time in their history, the council species faced a threat that could not be negotiated with, bribed, or reasoned with. Ambassador Kolseven of the Nexari spoke first, his collective voice unusually unified. Our hive mind has reached consensus. We cannot face this threat alone. The Nexari formally request alliance with humanity. One by one, the other species followed. The Luminians, with their understanding of energy and space-time, realized their vulnerability. The Vorthek, with their ancient memories, understood the historical precedent. Even the most warlike species recognized that this was not a battle. They could win through traditional means. Chancellor Vex made the formal declaration. The Galactic Council votes unanimously to accept alliance with humanity. We place our civilizations under joint command for the defense of this galaxy. Morrison felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Chancellor, you should understand what you are agreeing to. This alliance will change your societies forever. The preparations we need to make will require sacrifices that your people have never imagined. What choice do we have? Vex replied. Accept change and fight for survival, or maintain our current ways and face extinction. Dr. Kim brought up the final display, showing the timeline for defensive preparations. We have between 500 and 1,000 years to prepare. It sounds like a long time, but the scale of what we need to accomplish is enormous. We need to transform your entire galactic civilization into a war machine capable of fighting entities that exist beyond normal reality. General Torres outlined the basic requirements. Every habitable world will need to be fortified. Every star system will need defensive installations. Every species will need to contribute their unique capabilities to weapons development and military preparation. And the cost? Asked Ambassador Velprime. Everything, Morrison replied honestly. Your current way of life, your peaceful development, your independent cultures. 5 years had passed since the Great Alliance was formed. The galaxy looked nothing like it had before. Where once there were peaceful trade routes, now massive defense stations floated in space. Where once there were quiet research colonies, now weapon factories worked day and night to produce tools of war. Admiral Chris Bennett stood on the bridge of the UHCS Unity, the first ship built with combined human and council technology. Around him, crew members from 6 different species worked together with an efficiency that would have been impossible just years before. Admiral, called Lieutenant Sarah Walsh, the human navigation officer, we are receiving reports from the outer monitoring stations. The main Devourer force has entered our galaxy. Bennett felt his stomach drop. They had hoped for more time, but the entities had arrived 300 years ahead of their most optimistic estimates. How many? Sensors are having trouble getting accurate readings, replied Dr. Rachel Stone, the ship's chief scientist. The entities exist partially outside normal space-time, which makes counting them difficult. But our best estimate is several thousand individual Devourers, supported by millions of smaller construct units. The Admiral activated the ship's communication system. All stations, this is Admiral Bennett. Condition Red is now in effect. The enemy has arrived. All defensive fleets move to predetermined positions. This is not a drill. Across the galaxy, the massive defensive network that had taken 5 years to build came alive. Human technology merged with council resources had created weapons and strategies that neither could have developed alone. But everyone knew the real test was just beginning. Colonel Mark Thompson, now commander of the Integrated Defense Forces, opened a channel from the fortress world of New Geneva. Admiral, all ground-based defenses are online. The orbital platforms are charged and ready. Our integrated crews are performing better than expected. The integration had been the hardest part of the preparation. Teaching council species to work with human intuition while humans learn to interface with alien technology. But somehow it had worked. The Nexari hive mind could now process human tactical thinking, while Vorthak memory crystals stored human combat innovations. Dr. Stone's voice interrupted Bennett's thoughts. Admiral, I am detecting the first wave of Devour scouts entering the outer defense perimeter. They are different from what we expected. The main display showed energy signatures that hurt to look at directly. The Devourer scouts moved through space like living shadows, their forms shifting between dimensions in ways that made normal sensors useless. All ships, this is Admiral Bennett, remember your training? These entities exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Use the quantum targeting systems and trust your human crew members' enhanced perception. They can see what our instruments cannot. The first battle began at the edge of the Kepler system, where a small fleet of Council ships encountered a Devourer probe construct. The engagement lasted only minutes, but it taught them valuable lessons about their enemy. Captain Janet Miller, commanding the CSS Harmony that had first detected humanity's return, sent her report with barely controlled fear in her voice. The entity absorbed our conventional weapons completely. Energy beams, particle cannons, even nuclear warheads, nothing touched it. But when we used the human-designed quantum disruptors, we managed to damage its outer shell. Bennett nodded grimly. Understood, Captain. Fall back to the secondary defense line and regroup with the main fleet. Dr. Stone was analyzing the battle data when she made a disturbing discovery. Admiral, the Devour probe was not trying to destroy our ships, it was studying them, learning about our capabilities. What does that mean? It means they are intelligent, in ways we did not expect. They are not just mindless consumers, they are adapting to our defenses in real time. The implications were terrifying. An enemy that could learn and adapt while existing partially outside normal reality was almost impossible to fight. Using conventional strategies, 3 days later the main Devourer force reached the galaxy's inner systems. The entities moved through space like a dark tide, consuming everything in their path. Entire star systems went dark as the Devourers drained them of energy and matter, but the galaxy was no longer defenseless. The combined fleets met the enemy at the Vega defense line, humanity's most advanced fortification. Ships from 12 species fought side by side, using weapons that operated on principles the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Bennett watched from the Unity's bridge as the battle unfolded around them. Human ships phased in and out of normal space, attacking the Devourers from multiple dimensions simultaneously. Council vessels provided massive firepower and tactical support, their crews working with human intuition to target enemies that conventional sensors could barely detect. Admiral, called Colonel Thompson from the Surface Command Center, our ground-based installations are reporting success with the dimensional anchor weapons. We can force the Devourers to exist fully in normal space, making them vulnerable to conventional attacks, but the victory came at a terrible cost. Dr. Stone's readings showed the truth that everyone feared to acknowledge. Admiral, our pilots who are engaging the Devourers in transdimensional combat, many of them cannot return to normal space. They are becoming trapped between dimensions. Bennett felt the weight of command crushing down on him. The humans had evolved the ability to perceive and fight in multiple dimensions, but using that ability was like walking into a fire. Some could do it and return. Others became lost forever in the spaces between realities. How many? He asked quietly. 40% of our transdimensional fighters have not returned from their last missions? Dr. Stone replied, and the percentage is increasing with each engagement. The battle raged for weeks across multiple star systems. The combined fleets fought with desperate courage, but the Devourers seemed endless. For every entity they destroyed, 2 more appeared. From the void between galaxies. Then Dr. Stone made the discovery that changed everything. Admiral, I have been studying the Devourer attack patterns. They are not random. The entities are trying to reach something specific in the galaxy's core region. What could they want there? The galactic center black hole. If they can consume that, they can unravel the gravitational structure that holds our entire galaxy. Together, Bennett realized the horrible truth. The Devourers were not just trying to consume individual systems. They were planning to destroy the galaxy's fundamental structure, ensuring that nothing could ever exist here again. All fleets, this is Admiral Bennett. We are changing strategy. All ships fall back to the core defense perimeter. We make our stand at the galactic center. The final battle was unlike anything in the history of warfare. Ships from across the galaxy converged on the galactic core, where the massive black hole that anchored their spiral arms waited. The Devourers came in numbers that blotted out the stars, their forms shifting between dimensions as they approached their ultimate target. Admiral Bennett stood on the Unity's bridge, watching as human pilots prepared for missions they knew they could not survive. Dr. Stone, what are our chances? Mathematically, almost zero. But humans have never been good at accepting mathematical impossibilities. The battle began with the largest coordinated attack in galactic history. Every ship, every weapon, every tactical innovation developed over 5 years of preparation was brought to bear against the Devourer fleet, but it was not enough. The entities pushed through the defensive lines, their hunger for the galactic core driving them forward despite massive losses. They were almost within reach of their goal when Commander Morrison made the decision that saved the galaxy. All human ships, this is Morrison. Prepare for a final protocol. We are going transdimensional. Every human ship in the fleet began to phase out of normal space, entering the same multidimensional existence as the Devourers. The cost was immediate and terrible. Most of the human crews would never return to normal reality, but from their new existence between dimensions, they could fight the Devourers as equals. The battle shifted to spaces that no other species could perceive, where human consciousness fought against entities that existed beyond normal understanding. The war between dimensions lasted only hours in normal time, but for those fighting in transdimensional space, it felt like eternity. When it ended, the Devourer fleet was broken and scattered. Their advance stopped just short of the galactic core, but the victory had cost humanity almost everything. Of the thousands of humans who entered transdimensional combat, only a few hundred managed to return to normal space. The rest remained lost between realities. Existing in a state that was neither life nor death, Admiral Bennett stood in the quiet aftermath, looking out at a galaxy that had been saved but forever changed. The Council species had survived, but they would never again be the same civilizations that had lived in peaceful isolation. Admiral, Dr. Stone said quietly, we are receiving a transmission from the survivors in transdimensional space. Commander Morrison is still alive, but he cannot return. Bennett listened to Morrison's final message, transmitted across the barriers between realities. We did what we came back to do. We saved the galaxy. The long vigil is over. Take care of the future we made possible.